Fantasy football is meant to be fun, but let's get real. It's only fun if you win. So, what can you do right now to make sure that you bring home that trophy at the end of the season? It's not too late. I know that we're more than halfway through the season, but let me tell you about a little trick called the King's Gambit. So, as you know, we're avid chess players and fantasy football players here. So, I'm going to tell you about an unexpected strategy that you can use right now to help secure that W come playoff time. Now, if you know anything about a gambit, the idea is that you give up a piece, like a pawn, early in order to get an advantage, usually in position, and it'll pay off later on. All right. So a pawn isn't the most important piece. It's something you can live without, but really you're still giving up material. It's something that you're sacrificing really to get nothing back immediately in return. You're hoping that your strategy in the end is going to pay off. So how do we convert that to fantasy football? Let me tell you. All right. So take a player that you really been holding on to, and you don't need somebody kind of a fringe wide receiver. You play him once in a while, but not every week. He's not a lock to start. Maybe a backup quarterback you have just in case as an insurance policy, right? A tight end that you've been streaming, whatever the case may be. You're going to go ahead and drop that player now to add a player who has barely been touching the ball. That's right. You're going to give up a guy who you think has value. You might even be able to use him this coming week, but you're going to drop him to make space for a backup running back. Okay. Why do you do this? It's called insurance policy, my friend. Okay. So here's the gambit. You're going to add players that are available on most waiver wires. They're really not contributing much. You can't start them now, but they could pay off huge in the playoffs. Think about last season. Kenyan Drake. He had done nothing for the whole season, basically. He was not startable at all in fantasy. And then the last 2 weeks, week 15 and 16, where it matters most, he went nuts, went crazy. That 4-touchdown game helped a lot of fantasy teams win championships. Okay, think about Raheem Mostert also. He scored 1 touchdown the first 10 games of the season. And then from week 12 on, he scored a touchdown, at least 1 touchdown in every game. Helped a lot of fantasy teams also. Go back to 2018. You had guys like Damien Williams, Jaylen Samuels, CJ Anderson, remember him? Helped a lot of teams by going crazy just in those last couple of weeks where the fantasy playoffs take place. Who are the guys who are going to help you right now in 2020? Let's take a look at some of those guys that might be available. So countdown, let's do a top 5 countdown here. Number 5, I'm going to go with a guy, Cam Akers. I am not giving up on. I don't care. I know maybe this is stubborn, but Cam Akers has barely touched the field. I know he had a rib injury for a few weeks, but if you think about it, who has the most upside out of all running backs that are just sitting there on waivers? Cam Akers is one of the top rookie running backs in the draft, whether Sean McVay wants to recognize it or not. He has the ability. He was held out for a while. Darrell Henderson looked good for a while, but we saw is starting to happen where he out-touched and barely outproduced Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown against Seattle. Now, he didn't get the touchdowns and he didn't have a monster game, but the fact that he's starting to get more carries, that means something. If an injury happens to one of those 2 running backs, this could be the guy that breaks out. It's worth the stash. I guarantee the upside is worth it. All right, so he is going to be my number 5 pick. Number 4, I'm going to go with Deontay Foreman. Talked about him on waiver wire episodes before. Deontay Foreman out of the league for a couple of years. We didn't even know he was on an NFL roster until a couple weeks ago. Now with Tennessee backing up Derrick Henry, I don't need to tell you why that is one of the most important insurance policies possible, especially for Henry owners. If you have Derrick Henry, you need his backup. It looks like right now it is Foreman. A word to the wise, though. I know that Darrington Evans, who I was big on preseason, he's been hurt almost all his rookie year. He is now set to come back from IR, so it's possible that Evans does take that role. Kind of monitor here. You don't have to grab one of these guys just yet. Let's see what happens with Evans. But Foreman right now is the one to stash if you are a Henry owner, and then Evans could be the guy. So be ready to pivot. Number 3 is going to be Devontae Booker, also somebody who's just coming on. We've heard about Booker for a while. In Denver, he had a decent role and then looked like he was going to be out of the league after last year. But now with the Raiders, he is officially the RB2 behind Josh Jacobs, and that team has been running the ball really effectively lately. So you know what, Devontae Booker, if Jacobs were to go out, he'd be the guy. He could be a top 20 running back, and I'm not going to go so far to say he would be a league winner per se, but he's looked pretty good with the ball in his hands, and you know that he's going to get a ton of touches. in this day and age of running backs where everybody's dropping like flies, just have a starting running back is so valuable. He is one of the top picks to have, especially on a team that has shown it actually can run the ball effectively and is committed to it. Number 2 is going to be a guy that I know a lot of players already own him, Jamal Williams, but if he's available on waivers, do pick him up. We've seen what he can do in stretches when Aaron Jones is out. He's getting touches even with Jones on the field. So he does have some standalone value in deeper leagues. But you know what? If Williams is sitting out there, you grab him now because Aaron Jones, you know, he's been banged up, missed a couple of games with that calf injury already. Jamal Williams tied to one of the best offenses in the league. So that's a handcuff that shouldn't be available. But if he is, you grab him now. Number 1, though, is still going to be Alexander Mattison. That's right. And I know a lot of fantasy owners were disappointed with him because that one time when Dalvin Cook was out and we thought it was just such a smash spot, right? He was going to kill the Falcons. He was going to carve them up. He was going to go off, be a top 5 running back, and he did absolutely nothing. He's been better as a backup coming in as a change of pace guy than he has when he's gotten a chance. But you know what? Don't give up on him. Number 1, Dalvin Cook has been the best fantasy player for all of 2020. You want his backup. It goes without saying that if Cook goes down, Mattison does, despite his failings earlier in the year, become the top waiver wire pick, one of the top running backs in the league because that team wants to run the ball and they can do it. All right. It's pretty obvious. Mattison is talented. Don't let a couple of down games discourage you. Don't let the fact that he hasn't touched the ball a lot recently, it's been all Cook. If Cook is gone, it's going to be all Mattison, and you definitely want that. Even if you don't have a guy like Cook or Henry, you can grab some of these players now. And this is the part where, again, you're sacrificing some bench space, maybe some backups to other positions, but you take that chance. You grab Madison, you grab Foreman, you grab Akers, and you keep them on your bench because, number 1, if that happens, you'll be so glad you did. But number 2, you'll be also glad your opponent didn't get a chance to pick those guys up. All right, you're not going to sit around and wait for somebody, to all of a sudden go off, and then you're going to have to fight through the waiver wire system, try to spend all your FAAB. If you have any FAAB left, do it now. Be proactive. Try the King's Gambit and see if it works. I'm telling you, it's helped me in past seasons. I never thought Jaylen Samuels would lead me to a championship, but he did a couple of years ago. You'll be glad if you have one of these guys and they go off too. All right. Good luck in 2020.